Today's session is on nurturing culture. Uncertain times. It is with great joy and pride that we begin Refinery 2021, a celebration not just of events, but of ideas, inspiration, and innovation. Today we have opportunity to draw inspiration from the wisdom of a truly special individual, Shri R. Gopalkrishnan, a distinguished author and corporate advisor. On behalf of Team MRPL, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. I request our Managing Director to welcome the guest with a lucky plant. Our hearty welcome to our Managing Director, Shri M. Shyamprasad Kamath, Director Refinery, Shri Nandakumar V. Pillai, our CVO, Shri Ganesh S. Bhatt, our ED Project, Shri B.H. Prasad, ED Refinery, Shri B. Sudarshan. I extend warm welcome to all my senior colleagues, Team MRPL friends, and family members present here. I request everyone to keep your mobile phone off till the end of the session. Now I request everyone to rise for MRPL anthem.
हरियाली जीवन में खुशहाली जाने ये दुनिया हमारी दास्तां छुएंगे हम आसमां छुएंगे हम आसमां हम हर मंजिल को पाए हर ऊंचाई को छू जाए हम हर मंजिल को पाए हर ऊंचाई को छू जाए सभी से अलग है हमारी पहचान छुएंगे हम आसमान छुएंगे हम आसमान सपनों को लक्ष्य बनाया हर घर में दीप जलाया सपनों को लक्ष्य बनाया हर घर में दीप जलाया मिलते हर मोड़ पर हमारे ही निशान छुएंगे हम आसमान छुएंगे हम MRPL छुएंगे हम आसमान
Please be seated. Let us now begin the auspicious occasion with the traditional lighting of the lamp, symbolizing knowledge, wisdom, and dispelling of darkness. I would like to invite esteemed dignitaries, our Managing Director, Direct Refinery, CVO, ED Project, ED Refinery, and GGMHR to join Shri R. Gopalkrishnan, our today's guest, in lighting of the lamp.
कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय
lamp is lit, it may ignite the flame of inspiration, harmony, and success for each one of us. And now may I call upon Shri Gopalkrishnan, our today's guest, to come to the dais and grace the gathering. I request Gigi Mechar to escort the chief guest. I am truly honored to introduce our esteemed chief guest, Shri Gopalkrishnan, whose remarkable journey and insights inspire us all. Ladies and gentlemen, Rambhadran Gopalkrishnan, born on 25 December 1945, earned a bachelor's degree in physics from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta University, a bachelor's degree in electronics from IIT Kharagpur in 1967, and did a 6-week advanced management program from Harvard Business School, United States. He began his career in 1967 as a computer analyst with Hindustan Lever. He worked in the marketing function before moving to general management. Shri Gopalkrishnan served as chairman of Unilever Arabia, as MD of Brooke Lipton, and vice chairman of Hindustan Lever, as director of Tata Sons and several Tata companies. He serves as an independent director of Press Trust of India. Shri Gopalkrishnan spends his time in writing, advising, speaking, and teaching. He has been newspaper columnist and continues to write every month for financial papers. He has also authored many books. His 5 bestsellers are The Case of the Bonsai Manager, When the Penny Drops, Learning What's Not Taught, What the CEO Really Wants from You, 6 Lenses, and Biography of Innovations. Shri Gopalkrishnan has been a corporate leader for 58 years, 31 years in Unilever, 18 in Tata, and over a decade as an author and commentator. Shri Gopalkrishnan mentors few startups as well. He is an inspirational speaker and is actively engaged in both instructional and inspirational speaking. For the last few years, he has spoken at conferences both internationally and in India. He is a past president of All India Management Association. Shri Gopalkrishnan has a wide range of subjects, especially business in India, markets and customers, governance and strategy, organization and people, and innovation. He relies on practical examples, rich with anecdotes, rather than theory or analytical frameworks. He has taught an unusual courses at business school titled Learning What Nobody Teaches. He is a distinguished professor at IIT Kharagpur. Today, we are privileged to have him with us at MRPL to share his insights on nurturing culture through uncertain times. Please join me in giving a warm and enthusiastic welcome for ever-inspiring Shri R. Gopalkrishnan. Without further delay, it's my honor to invite Shri R. Gopalkrishnan to share his treasured wisdom and knowledge with us to inspire us all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much to MRPL for inviting me, and to the determination of Mr. Sudarshan, who would not take no for an answer. That's how good refinery people are made, you know. They don't take no for an answer. Although you have thanked me profusely for being here, I should be thanking you. because it demonstrates some thinking on the part of the leadership. I do not know if it is the managing director or the director, it doesn't matter. The leadership is saying, how can I prepare my people for tomorrow? Otherwise you would not have this series and you would not spend so much time, 3-4 times a year, so many people sitting and listening. If there are spiritual leaders who come to talk to you, at least you'll get spiritually uplifted. But I'm not a spiritual leader. But having walked the path that you all are walking, of being a manager in an operating manager, I feel I have a few lessons which I have learnt. You know, all the lessons we learn in life are self-evident once they are learnt. But until you learn them, they are hidden. Who doesn't know all the lessons of life? But yet, those are precisely the ones that we forget at the crucial moment. Don't be arrogant. Lean towards people and human relations. Anticipate the future. These are not PhD winning research papers. But those are exactly the things that we tend to forget. And if you need evidence, go home and ask your wife. She will tell you all your flaws. She can list it for you. You may not like it. Your husband also. I'm sorry, there are ladies here. This is your spouse. Go and ask your spouse. And you know the flaws of your spouse. And you know the same flaw keeps coming back. Being short-tempered, not listening, not remembering the birthday, all sorts of things like that. After spending my working career in Hindustan Lever 31 years, and I moved on from being vice chairman there to being a director of Tata Sons, because I met Ratan Tata and he told me some role that he had as a director of Tata Sons. And at the age of 52 at that time, I said, kuch naya karenge. And I moved to Tata's, which I spent 18 very happy years. And after I finished my 49 years of my career, I've spent the last 10 years of my retirement thinking and reflecting on what I have learnt and trying to share it. And when I share it, people say, ye to sabko malum hai. But that's exactly what people say, lekin isko hum forget karte hain. So I'm taking the liberty of marrying my enthusiasm with Mr. Sudhakar's enthusiasm to try to share some of the lessons I've learnt. And for today's talk, which is nurturing culture through uncertain times, I'm relying on 3 books out of the many that were mentioned, from which I've drawn. One is a book in 2017 I wrote called A Biography of Innovations, where I have compared the human act of innovation not to a physics or chemistry process, which is what most books on innovation do. They tend to show you funnels and stage gates and decision points. But I have looked at it as a biological process. And the difference between a biological process and a physics chemistry process is one is random and chaotic, biology. Physics and chemistry follow equations and can be predicted if you've taken the trouble to find them out. So the laws of thermodynamics are known, the laws of motion are known, the laws of gravity are known. But how a piece of a tea leaf, which you pluck from a tea bush and put it through the furnace to make the black tea that you drink. I've been managing director of a tea company, so I know a little bit. It's completely random. And you can have a reasonable set of circumstances which you can write, but they don't follow any particular law. It depends in that chamber, what are the microflora, what are the bacteria, what is the atmosphere, just like the human body. 5 of us may be exposed to the same bug. One of us falls sick, the other 4 don't. So that is the book I wrote on A Biography of Innovations. And then I was fascinated. Within 2 years I got very interested in the subject of why do people work so hard to become CEO and then they get fired. And I said, what happens? I've also been a CEO in my time. As the higher you climb, the more the brain damage. This is not a message to your directors. I find some people shaking their head. This is not a subtle message to your directors. I'm just saying it's a human thing. It's like saying the older you get, the more of the cells of your body fail to function. So it's a law of nature. And so I studied several case studies of CEOs who are brilliant people, got up there. I use the word CEO, but it can be CXO, it can be any senior person. And I used a lot of research papers, not that I am myself knowledgeable in that area, and they found that you do get some damage in the brain. It's like if you're a sportsman, it is possible for your body to get damaged when you're playing sport. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not that your brain damage means you're crazy. Some are. If you go across the United States today, you can find some. And if you want me to prove there can be brain damage, just take a boat, go to Boston, Washington, and you'll find out. There is a damage to the brain. The extent of the damage and the way it manifests itself may vary. So that is the second book I've relied upon. The third one I wrote and published only last year was exactly on the theme of your talk. It's called Embrace the Future. It makes a simple point that embracing the future is something we all know, like be kind to your wife, but periodically we forget to embrace the future, just like you fail to be kind to your spouse, not wife. Okay? So I'm not going to use PowerPoint charts. I think it's a disease of modern management. But now I've grown out of that phase. I'm not saying you should or should not use PowerPoint charts, but I want to chat with you. I'm not going to give you some gyan and make 6 charts and then request Mr. Sudhakar to circulate my clever charts. It's not necessary. I want to chat with you because I want to engage your mind just for the next 45 minutes or an hour. And then if you have questions or debates, if you disagree also, that's fine. But there'll be 4 subjects I'll be covering, which I just want to mention so that you know what. The first is, what is the archetype of the kind of company that you are? And I will explain that in a moment. The second is, what does organizational renewal mean? We all use the word. The third is, the future is like a mistress. It's very difficult to embrace. Actually, mistresses are easier to embrace than the future because we just don't know what the future is. And the fourth is, what will be the hallmarks of the future leader? When people like me are not around, not because our presence prevents it, but making a forecast of the future. And I see a lot of black hair over here. I hope that will be interesting to you, because if you model yourself on becoming like the current leadership, then you may be failing. Because the kind of challenge that you will face 25 years from now, when some of you may be occupying those seats, will be fairly different. Just like your current leaders did not just model themselves on previous leaders, they must have learned something, but they've had to rise to the current challenges that they are facing. So 4 subjects. The first one I want to talk about is organizational archetype. You know, our mind, our brain functions better when we recognize that there are certain categories of people. Okay? And then you start to see, sometimes you jump to a conclusion. So you say he's an Indian. That person is a Pakistani. That person is a Turkish person. So your mind starts to figure out what that person is and how it behaves. But the real reason is not because you want to find out who's Indian or Pakistani or public sector or private sector. Because every species in nature adapts in its own way. A snail cannot read a management book on how the cheetah is adapting because it cannot follow those instructions. If I come and tell you, thump the table, tell your boss to go to hell, do what you think is right. First of all, that is silly advice to give. I will not give such advice. But even if I did, you may say I am public sector, I have government. I can't just dismiss it. That's the reality. It goes with the species. So you can't do in MRPL what I did in Tata or Levers. Conversely, I can't do in Tata or Levers what you are required to do in MRPL. So I consider that I don't want to make an exception out of MRPL, but every company or its cohorts are of a certain jat. And what is the jat of a company? I say there are 4 kinds of characteristics in every company, and they adduce to the acronym HEAD, H-E-A-D. It is not that you're H or E or A or D, you're all of them, but the pie chart which you draw has dominantly H or dominantly D or dominantly E or A. But everything has a market share in that. So if 100%, I can say your personality is 30% H, 20% E, etc., adding up to 100. But what does HEAD stand for? H is heroic. Every company has a certain element of heroism. But that may not be the dominant characteristic. For example, if I say Microsoft, it's a heroic company. And that is the dominant characteristic of Microsoft, if you look at its history. But it also has elements of E, A, and D. But I would hold out, if you look at ISRO, I consider them heroic. They do things that really nobody else has had the courage, guts, knowledge, whatever you want to call it. So it's not that it's only in private sector or only in Silicon Valley, it's there everywhere. E stands for excellence. You become so good with practice. Every year 1% improvement, 2% improvement. I suspect if you're running a refinery, you must be dominantly E, because you can bust up a refinery in no time. If you just go away from the playbook, and nobody should be innovative in a refinery and just change all the knobs and blow it up. You can't do that. It's not the nature of the business. I would say Hindustan Lever is also an excellence company. Every year you try to save a little bit of working capital, a little bit of financing cost, a little bit of the efficiency, the amount of steam used per ton of product, etc. A stands for altruistic. And one of the great lessons I learned is it's possible for companies to be altruistic. And Tata is a great example. I'm not here to praise Tata, but definitely a very strong feature of Tata is altruism. D is discovery. I want to do what nobody else has done. Everybody should say it's crazy. Elon Musk, forget the current situation of what's happening in the US. He must be really crazy to want to have a private sector rocket go to the ship, SpaceX, or an electric car, long before the petrol cars were thinking of it or were acting on it. So there is this HEAD pie chart, and I assume that while you have in your business all characteristics, you must be 50-60% E, excellence, and a little bit of the others. Okay, that is for you to determine, not for me to determine. But reflecting on this and debating this is helpful because it internalizes who you are. We suffer from 2 problems. First is we are fearful of uncertainty. Arey Baba, Trump kya karega next? You and I may not lose sleep about it, but if I'm Narendra Modi or Jai Shankar, I would lose sleep over it. But you and I may lose sleep about if green comes, what happens to refineries? If solar takes over, what do you do with the refinery? If ethanol blending is done, what do you do with a certain kind of business? So we have a fear. And it's natural to have some fear. But the second thing that upsets us is the anger that you're not in control. Because somehow you spent your career that if I learnt the equations of chemistry and thermodynamics, I can control the matter. Now suddenly the thing is out of your control. And actually you see around what's happening in the world now. Our subject is not to discuss geopolitics. But every morning you get up and wonder, what has Trump done last night? Whether it's good or bad is a matter of your opinion. He thinks he's doing good. And you can see the demonstration of fear and anger. But he thinks that's the way the world should have been. And he's doing whatever he has to do in his job as President of the United States. So what is this culture business then? Where does culture come in? So culture is like the bagar, the sauce in which the vegetables and the meat and the fish is cooked. And culture is very unique and distinctive to a company, not only an industry. Industry, yes, definitely, but even to a company. I don't think MRPL culture is identical, I would assume, to, your own parent, ONGC or BPCL or somebody else. Hindustan Lever has a consumer products culture, but is definitely not identical to Dabur or Godrej. Tata Motors has an automotive culture, but is definitely not just like Volkswagen or... So, it is the sauce in which you're cooked, I'm close enough to Tamil Nadu and Kerala here. You make avial at home. That is very special, that sauce. And the Malayali will insist you should have coconut oil, and the Tamil will say you should have gingerly oil. And there'll be differences of that kind that will come in the sauce. And most of us, especially those who are excellence orientated, like I think you may be, think that excellence is an end in itself. Especially where there are a lot of engineers. Engineers tend to think that way. But actually, the amplifier for excellence is effectiveness. And I found in my many years, I'm a former engineer myself, excellence looks like an end in itself. And splitting hairs about effectiveness seems to be a waste of time. But actually, excellence is enhanced or depreciated by effectiveness. All excellent people are not effective. All effective people are not excellent. The HR community is much maligned in many companies. I don't know how you do it in your company. But they usually look for effectiveness. Production people look for excellence. Accounts people look for excellence, precision. Marketing people want effectiveness. And therefore you find some natural differences of opinion coming up which need to be resolved. This culture is something that you are born with, you assume. You want to light a lamp, you take off your shoes. He said, can I give you the trouble to take off your shoes? It's not trouble for me. But if I was from some other culture, I would say, what is this funny practice? Why don't you tell me before I'll come in my Hawaii chappal? So, culture is something that you take for granted. And it is something very important to an organization. Culture doesn't mean you cannot change it. But changing it is to be done very gradually. You take your own families. Luckily, grandfathers pass away and generations move on. But I doubt if you're any different from me. My grandfather was convinced that the only good way to marry is to marry a person of your community. And our communities are stratified into multiple layers. It's like the fractionations of a refinery. You take this cut, you get that, you take that cut, you get that. And the thought that his children, that is my father's generation, would marry outside the community was absolutely unacceptable to him. And my father said, maybe, but thank God my children are married in the same. But when I raise my children, I cannot expect them to necessarily marry. Only community is defined sometimes very narrowly, the subset of communities. That's not culture. That is changing. But taking off your shoes, saying today is Friday, I'll do my Gayatri. These are all things that we have got used to. You can't make a virtue out of it. You don't have to make a vice out of it. It is something that you do. I have traveled a lot during my career. When I used to go to Singapore or Taiwan or China, say even 25 years ago, in the business district, I would find many women going to work. But they would all be wearing skirts or jeans, not jeans, trousers. I come back to India even today, forget about 25 years ago, they are mostly wearing salwar kameez or sari. The number of people wearing a skirt, is it good or bad? Neither. I don't think you have to make a big deal out of it. But Indian women culturally are that way. After 3-4 generations it may change. But certainly these are the aspects of culture. So I tried for the purpose of this talk to isolate what is independent of domain, whether you're in petrochemicals or in soap or in motor cars or electricity generation. What are those aspects of culture which are common to all groups of people? And that's what I want to talk about. So to come and tell you that you should always maintain refinery efficiency, I am nobody to tell you that, and it's quite a waste of time to tell you people that. So that attention of my talk in the next half an hour or so. Is there a water here? Is that the one? Now, having described or guessing that you must be a dominantly E company with some H, A and D characteristics, I'd like to go to this point about organizational renewal. I have been struck, especially after my retirement, because I spent a lot of time reading and thinking. And everybody keeps saying, we are going through unprecedented change now. Technology is changing everything. Everything is getting digitized. Artificial intelligence is now the latest bug. It is true. Things are changing. But do you think it wasn't changing when I started my career? It was changing, helter-skelter, believe me. I started my career 57 years ago. And what was coming? Computers. Which computer? I was trained on mainframes because there was no PC and all this, And at that time, I was young and enthusiastic. I did my engineering degree in electronics and computer science. I said, this is going to change the world. But other people who were 20 years older than me said, these young fellows are coming and destroying my job. When I talked to my father, he had a similar point. I even talked to my grandfather when he was alive. He also had the same job. He said, Maatu vandi inime odade. That is, the bullock cart will not run anymore because some big black monster called a train has come. My grandfather was a baby, a small child at that time. He said, from Mangalore, which is near my village, you took 8 days to go to Madras, and now they are saying in 8 hours you can go. And he says, you see that black monster steam engine? He says, you cannot imagine how scary it is. And my grandfather was very young at that time when the steam engine came. So technology has always been going on. So what's so great? Why does everybody get worked up? The technology is changing. And I feel there's a flaw. While technology is changing, our tools to cope with the technology are also changing. So one graph goes like this, the tools go like that. There is a phase lag between the two. The lag is constant. So don't get worked up. Don't let these AI guys come and tell you. I mean, listen to them. I'm not saying they're saying wrong things. But for God's sake, of course the engineering drawing department was very different in those days compared to today. And so you adapt to it. And I think human beings have survived for centuries, 25 centuries, or more than 25 centuries, because that gap is constant. So I can cope. Now I find it difficult to cope, but my son is coping perfectly well. And sometimes when I don't know how to go to Chat GPT, my grandson is telling me, Tata, you don't even know this, To him it's the most elementary thing. Why does this happen? Because the gap is constant. So the first lesson I've learned is that it is no point getting worked up that everything is changing. Next time somebody says it's all changing, you say, yeah, the tools are also changing. So what? Have you changed? Are you learning something new? And I used to be marveling at people of my age group when I was in service who would get emails printed and their secretary would give it to them and then they would mark it with a ball pen and then it would go back for typing. This is creating an electronic stenographer. And I said, hey, you can't do this. He said, I am 65, I can't do anything more. So what if you're 65? But now, you said, we're all straight ourselves at the machine. So, I read a book called Centuries of Change. It's by a British historian from Oxford University called Ian Morris. If any of you is interested, please read it. It's a bit of a dry book because it's very academic. But he has taken 10 centuries from 1000 AD to 2000 AD, 100 years at a time. What were the technological changes and how did people cope with it? And the question he tries to answer in the book is, in which century was the change the greatest? What do you think he found? Between 1000 AD and 2000, 10 centuries, in which century was the change the largest? Take a guess, anybody? No, I'm not saying which technology. I'm saying in which century was the change greatest? Sorry? All were the same. Why do you say that? So I gave you the answer before. All were the same. So the way my great-grandfather, I wrote my family history back to 1823, so I've got data up to 1823. Before that, I don't know. But the way each generation saw it, life was changing. The Doppler effect was in operation. What is the Doppler effect? We all know that. When the train is passing you, the frequency seems to be the loudest. Once it's far away, both sides, the frequency gets lower. You don't get confused. So we are all suffering from the Doppler effect. And this happens, and this perception is relevant because every organization is a living machine. It's not an inanimate machine. MRPL is a live human being. It is 28 years old. How old is this? 30 years. It's a young man. Now the question that your leadership has to address, will it be around in 50 years from now? And that's a tough question. And the question your leaders have to address, with you by the way. I mean, God has not given them some special insight that they can do it better than you. I would say in your groups you must discuss. What does it take to keep this organization alive for 50 years, 70 years? Just like when we have a child in the family, irrespective of which nation you are, which society you are, you all go and say Dirghayush Bhava. You want the child to live long. How can you create a company? Don't get carried away with these startup guys, who run losses for 15 years, build up billions of dollars. You have to think of long life because it's a living machine. What is MRPL without the people sitting in this room and in other places? Nothing. Those cast iron or stainless steel vessels are not going to make MRPL work. It's the people here. It is the deep knowledge of the people in this organization and in every organization who know apparently irrelevant things, but they become very important at a particular point of time. That is what makes this company whatever it is. So, if you think this is a living machine, then your job as the people who are tending the living machine is to make this living machine good and healthy for long. And therefore, all the principles that apply to the human body apply to this company. Are you using it? It's worth a thought. Today, I'm not running a seminar on this subject. That's not what I'm here for. But take immunology. I've written a paper on immunology for companies. The human body you protect by having vaccination because there are 3 layers of immunity. And only if a bug can get through the first layer, second layer and third layer, it can become life-threatening. Does the company also have 3 layers? Yes, it does. So the outer layer I call employee engagement. And I won't go into the definition of what is employee engagement. I mean, your HR people are capable of explaining all that to you. It can be measured. But how many of you know the employee engagement of MRPL? You know the refinery output yesterday's production. You know the efficiency. You know the catalytic consumption. You know the power consumption per liter or per ton or whatever. But you don't know your employee engagement. But it can be measured. If your HR guy tells you it can't be measured, change your HR guy. Because it can be measured. When I joined Tata's and I said this, Tata said, well, go ahead and do it. And of course, it had an effect because suddenly you said, oh my God, in this department or that department or this company or that company. And there was resistance, but then I think now they measure it regularly. You can determine employee engagement by the entropy as you enter an organization. And you can feel it. There's a buzz around. Any of you have been to Egypt? I'm now 20 years out of date. There are 6 people doing the job of nobody. And you can see there is no entropy there. They're all applying lipstick, doing their hairdo, etc. They won't attend to your ticket change. The second layer, I call employee commitment. Again, there's a way to measure employee commitment. There's no rocket science. And the third thing is employee positivity. Employee positivity requires that positive virtues should be 3 times the negative virtue. Now, these are all possible to measure, but very few companies do it. And very few companies use it. And I would encourage your HR department to look at these aspects and improve the immunology of your company, which I think they also have a role, like the refinery manager has a role. And the gap between head and heart of every single person sitting in this room is only about 1 foot, 12 to 18 inches. And if you cannot run this company with head and heart, then this 3 factors, employee engagement, employee commitment, will all start to wither. So, in my training, I have found that creating a company where very ordinary people can get together and collectively produce extraordinary results is the job of leadership. But I don't find many leaders who take their task that way. Many leaders think I am in charge of production, I will look after production, finance, HR. Each one does his own thing, and they hope that the managing director will be like Zubin Mehta. Somehow he'll make everything work together. He tries, but that's not the real company that will last long. The real company, and I've been on boards for 37 years now, over 25 companies in India, in Middle East, in Europe. The real companies which are effective are where it's like a cricket team. It doesn't matter whether I'm a batsman or a bowler. If I can't take a catch or I can't save that ball from reaching the boundary, then I'm not a good team member, howsoever brilliant a batsman I may be. So I think the leadership, and I use the word leadership constantly, it is not just the sole task of the leadership, but down the line, people must feel bigger than what I call them boundary spanners. A company with many boundary spanners who can work across boundaries and not just do their cubby hole is a company that will survive long. And that is the task of top leadership. So I want to spend a few minutes, since I wrote that book, Embrace the Future, and why is it so difficult? The fact that you have to change is not in dispute. The trouble is you don't know what is the change that is coming and what you should respond to. And we are, as we have discussed earlier, concerned that we can't predict the future. You don't need to predict the future actually. You just need to be alert 24/7. I mean, I tried this during my career. What am I doing this year which is different from last year? And for a long time, nothing great. I'm doing about the same thing. The weekly production report comes, I look at the efficiencies that I'm supposed to achieve. Then I get after 2-3 guys who have to improve. I travel, I talk to them, I give them some gyan, and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And fundamentally, the ability to sit back and think about the future is something that once in a while you did an offsite, and sometimes that also became a reason to have a evening out with your colleagues. Because what you have to do as an executive is to understand that there are two parts to your job. The one part can be taught. You can attend management courses and HR department will arrange it, and I'm sure all of you have been through it also, which is the rational analysis of operations, of coordination, organization, but is the other part, the intuitive part, which tends to get weaker, and actually that should be stronger. I can tell you one thing. In the first 15, 20 years of my career, this is my experience, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just sharing. Most of my work was rational. Reports would come to me, I would put my pencil down, find out rationally what requires attention. I would get after those and try to correct it. But in the last 25 years, that became less important. It is my intuition that matters. Is this a signal that something is going wrong? Do I need to act now? Without it actually gone wrong. I remember one case, I had become a director of exports 35 years ago, and I was top of the world. I was very young, and you became a director of exports, you thought you arrived. And I sensed something wrong. We were dealing exports, so a lot of foreign exchange. In those days we had FERA. For young people who don't know what FERA is, it is a draconian law where even if $1 was found in your pocket, you could be jailed. And people were jailed. And I found something wrong about a particular person we had recruited. And my accountant couldn't tell me where $1 million was. $1 million is a lot of money, even today. But at that time, it was a hell of a lot of money. And I was petrified that the newspapers would say, ED, CBI, after Hindustan Lever, they put everybody into jail, $1 million is missing. And when I thought about it, I was very, what shall I say? I felt very insecure, vulnerable. I think any of you will feel vulnerable if you find 10 crores missing from your own department. And I said, I got 3 things to do. I'm now rationalizing. I think I acted intuitively at that time, but now I'm rationalizing. One way is to keep quiet and get further facts. Appoint an inquiry commission. The problem is put off for some time. The second is try to get more facts, because you're not sure. The third is to ask for help. So I went to my chairman. Just imagine, huh? I'm 43, 44, whatever I was at that time. I said, I have a problem. I can't find $1 million. I need help. My chairman said, what do you mean? I mean, you don't expect any CEO to give you a warm embrace and say, how lovely, you know. But I told him, I'm feeling vulnerable. I can't find $1 million and I think I'm getting crazy with the implications. He said, okay. He picked up the phone. He called the head of finance, head of legal, various colleagues. He said, we must help Gopal now. He's got a problem. He's not even sure what the problem is. This can happen to any human being. You can get completely disorientated if you're hit with a nuclear bomb, you know, in your head. And sure enough, we had lost $1 million. Somebody had cheated us. And chairman said, when you came in such a vulnerable condition, it's human nature. For a moment, I was no more chairman. You are no more director. I said, I must help this man. If somebody comes and says, Saab, aap help karo mujhe, you are unlikely to say, I am senior vice president, you are vice president, tum apne awqat pe aa jao. You'll want to help if you can. Whether it's right or wrong, whether my experience was good or bad, is not for me to judge. But my company, I was very lucky. I should have been fired, frankly. But my company said, this fellow's been honest. He has not been part of the racket. They actually promoted me after 1 year. And I realized that leaders are vulnerable. There's no harm in showing your vulnerability, so long as you don't do it every morning. If you say, yesterday I don't know what happened in the refinery, then of course your boss is unlikely to be. So this intuitive part of communicating, coordinating, converging, and coalescing people therefore becomes far more important in the second part of your career than it was in the first part of your career. And you can take many examples. I just mentioned a couple because every morning in the newspaper you read about it. Was there a 2G scam? Now it's all mixed up with the politics and this and that, etc. So nobody hell knows, you know. The fact is it went to the Supreme Court and they threw it out. So Mr. Raja will now happily say, there's no 2G scam, everybody made it up. Is there a Delhi liquor scam? I don't know. None of us knows. When you listen to the TV, depending on who's the anchor, you get, in one channel, you get the feeling that definitely there's been crookery. You switch the channel, you get the feeling, yeah, there's another angle to it. What would make an IAS officer get up and say that we have lost so much in telecom? I don't know what the number was, 176,000 crores. Absolute bloody bullshit. But he is a senior IAS officer. And every IAS officer is not. That's his judgment. He ukhado the whole government. So, and I'm taking examples from the public domain, not to comment on IAS officers or the politics of it, but you cannot assume that what you've heard is right. And this is becoming more and more so with social media and all these things. To get to the facts, to rely on other people to get the facts. If somebody asks me, I talk to a lot of foreigners who want to invest in India, that do you really have a liquor scam? I say, I really don't know. That's the honest answer. Because if I listen to Atishi, I feel it's all bullshit. This is just like that telecom scam. Then if I listen to somebody else, I get the feeling, loota hai. How do you calculate 2,000 crores? So, when we are in this situation, company leaders have to speak less and hear more. This has been my lesson. Whereas they become leaders by speaking more and hearing less. You see, suddenly this whole thing is inverted. What promoted me is not what is required anymore. Now I can't stand on my 2 feet, I have to stand upside down. And many leaders feel they don't have the time to listen. Or they think they are listening, but actually they are not. Have you heard of Body Shop, all of you? Anybody? Body Shop? At least one person. Anita Roddick started that company maybe 40, 50 years ago. And 50 years ago to say back to nature, produce soap or shampoo or whatever, powder, makeup for women. 1976 she started. She built the company, and like you could see Jack Welch every morning, you could see Anita Roddick every morning. Then she became a little old and she sold the company. That got sold to somebody else, and now the company is gone. That living machine has died in less than 50 years. Was it a great company in its time? Yeah. And some great people, even Srinivas Ramanujam, Swami Vivekananda died at the age of 32, 33. So it is not that their contribution is less. But you don't plan for your child to die at 32, saying he'll do all the brilliant things and then he can die. That's not the way we plan our families. Why should you plan your company that way? There are many examples. GE is a good example. Look at Boeing. I mean, you can't think of a better company than GE or Boeing. And there are different circumstances, and that's not the purpose of our discussion today. They lose their way. And that is why I got very interested. One swallow doesn't make a summer. But at least watch the swallow that might make the summer. I said, what makes companies long-lived? And I said, after my retirement, I teamed up with some academics in SP Jain, and I said, I want to inquire into this subject. And I wrote to 10 or 12 CEOs, because I had the connection, and would you participate in the research? 5 or 6 of them replied, saying, with pleasure. And I wrote 5 or 6 books, one on each of them. All of these were companies that did not exist when I started my career. You would never say I'm joining that company because it didn't exist. HDFC, Kotak, Marico, Biocon, TCS didn't exist. And then to each of them we asked the question, do you think you'll be long-lived? Because if a company is 40, 50 years old, you can't say you're long-lived. I can't say MRPL is a long-lived company. If it lives for 100 years, I'll say, yeah, maybe. And each of those books that have been published, there's a little summary that has been produced. What makes a company long-lived? Recently, I was in Jaipur for the Lit Fest. And one of the speakers was our Nobel Prize winner, Venki Ramakrishnan. And he's written a book called Why We Die. And he said why we die, but he got the Nobel Prize for it. But you and I know the answer. We won't get the Nobel Prize, that's a separate matter. We die, or if you want to live long, you must have good habits. What are the good habits? Are fairly well known. Avoid bad habits. Again, I'm not going to go into that now because that's not my subject. So companies have good habits. Companies also have bad habits. The third thing he said is, remember, a company doesn't fail because one organ failed. That leads to other things. It's a total system failure. That happens. We know in the company also that happens. We may say he died of a heart attack, but actually somebody will say he had some ischemia, then he had blood pressure, then he had this, he had that, and one after the other. Cancer came here, it spread gradually to the liver. We know that the system fails. Companies fail because the whole system fails. It's not the finance department or the marketing department or the operations department. So I then took Tata, because I said I'm very lucky I worked in Tata. It's lasted 156 years. So it's quite Dirghayush so far. And I hope, at least so long as I am alive, it will continue. What is the secret sauce? And that is my latest book that I've written, which has just been published, called Lessons from Tata, Jamshedji Tata. It validated what we had written about the 6 companies. So I think the analytical requirements are there, but that doesn't mean that you will all practice it. Don't you know you should not smoke, you should not put on weight, you should not eat red meat? You know, the Prime Minister started, don't eat so much edible oil. He's got 10 people who are to become icons of not eating edible oil. Nothing wrong with that, but we all know these things, and yet we do it. So I think giving a long life to your company, and what is the definition of a good habit for this company? There's only one, since you are in the oil and gas sector, I can't think, and there are tobacco, there are two sectors which have been seriously threatened. Tobacco for the reason of health, oil and gas for the non-Trump reason, the one that Trump doesn't accept. Okay. Can you name me any company that has completely changed its business from cigarettes to... Sorry? Yeah. Only one company in the whole world. I have not found another company. ITC, back in 1971-72, long before cancer and all became a big hawa, you know. They went into hotels, they went into printing, paper, packaging, edible products, agriculture products. And while it is true that they still get, I don't know, 80% of their profit from tobacco, at least 50-60% of their revenue. So it's such a long-term thing, it doesn't change easily. But they have been the only cigarette company in the world. I have not come across a single other one. And you take your oil and gas sector. Can you think of any company which has got its roots in oil and gas and which has completely shifted? Reliance. I am not saying they are right or wrong. I am not praising them or crying them down. But if Mukesh Ambani today says he knew nothing about telecom or digital or AI, but today we are the largest players in data. But if you want to talk about refinery, I can talk about refinery also. Only one company. No other oil and gas. In fact, the oil and gas companies have behaved in the most ridiculous way. Each of them made plans, and one by one, they're all falling off the tree. The American ones particularly. So, this is a very complex subject. It's very easy to give a talk and go away. If I was the head of an oil and gas company, I wouldn't know what I'll do. So I'm not the head of an oil and gas company. But you are. That's your problem. Okay? But I can say that this is not going to get solved in 5 years or 10 years. That's why I'm talking of 50 years. ITC, I wasn't present, but Ajit Haksar must have said, Kiar, after I'm dead and gone, will ITC still be a cigarette company? Mukesh must have said, I'm guessing, that I can't keep on being an oil and gas company only. So can I be something else? Can I go to the next big thing? So it's a different way of working. And I would like to close by talking about 4 or 5 characteristics of the future leader, because that may be relevant to you as individuals. Remember, the future leader is not the current CEO or the current CXO. It's you after 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. So I'm talking from that point of view. In the past, when I began my career, the CEO, the future leader, I won't keep calling him CEO, had to have a lot of IQ. He had to know more than his subordinates. So you went to him with a problem and he gave you the solution. That's the way I grew up. And I'm sure many of you who got a little bit of grey hair will recognize that. Towards the end of my career, I had a boss like Ratan Tata. You go to him, he says, I don't know, what do you think? You know? You need IQ, plus you also need EQ, emotional quotient. Because there are other people with better ideas. I remember I joined Tata's, and then within 3-4 years we were discussing whether TCS should have an IPO or Tata Sons should have an IPO. And we used to sit around the lunch table or meeting table and discuss pros, cons, this, that. Now my image of a great leader was that he would listen to everybody with his blue eyes and steely jaws. He would say, done, That's the way we go, guys. Let's march forward. But Ratan Tata was not like that. He said, what do you think? Why don't we think about it? We'll meet again next week. And I must say, I don't mind admitting it, I used to say, "Sala, kaisa leader hai?" I was also younger at that time. But he was reflecting that a leader who's got a really complex question doesn't have to have all the answers. He keeps listening. When the Taj terror attack happened, it is something nobody had any experience of. Nobody could thump the table and say, this is the way to do it. क्या करना चाहिए? आपका क्या ख्याल है? आपका क्या ख्याल है? When an extraordinary event happens, then you're really pushed. Otherwise, you know how to run a refinery, you know how to run a factory, you know how to run an automotive company. So, I say that you, future leader, 30 years from now, must have IQ, must have EQ, he must also have adaptability, so AQ, and there's a certain amount of spirituality, I call it. He must have SQ. Spirituality is saying, what is right? And spirituality doesn't mean religion, huh? I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're this religion or that religion. What is right to do? I remember when this terror attack happened in 2008. Like everybody else, I also sat in front of the TV and didn't sleep well that night. But 1 week earlier, I had fixed up to meet Ratan Tata at 10:30 next morning. So I remember the date, 27th of November, because this terror attack happened on 26th, which of course we didn't know. So my diary said 27th, 10:30, meet R&T. Next morning I got up and I said, am I going to go to office? Who the hell wants to sit and discuss whatever we were going to discuss? And I said, hey, I've told him I'll come, I must go. So hurry up, shave. And I didn't expect to find him in the office. But he was there. Of course, he wasn't wearing his jacket, he wasn't wearing his tie. He was looking very tired. So was I. But he's 10 years older than me. So I said, Ratan, why have you come? He said, because I gave you an appointment. And I've given you my word, I'll be here, I'll come. Why have you come? I said, you're my boss and you called me at 10:30, I've come. He said, do you really want to discuss this matter now? I said, no. But he said, you come all the way, let's have a cup of coffee for just 10 minutes. Had a cup of coffee, we went away. 1 month later, or 2 months later, we found out how many people died, how many people were in hospital, etc., etc. So he said, I want to go into the hospital and meet the people who have been injured, because those who died are died. And the head of HR people are lovely people, you know. They're always working with the boss saying, sir, is it all right, is it all right? So the head of HR was going with him. And he said, sir, this happened to this person, we have given this type of help, that person, that type of help. After 20 patients, Ratan Tata must have looked, as I remember his face so well, he must have looked very disturbed, which means your face is haggard and you look distressed. And he said, sir, I've finished all the patients. Sir, have we done everything? Are you happy? He said, I haven't come here to be happy. My colleagues are dying. They've been injured. I've come here to ask myself, is there anything else we can do? Not whether you've done everything, because you've never done enough. And this is what I mean by SQ, spirituality quotient. It's nothing to do with religion. And then he got up and made a statement, in 1 year, we'll have this hotel up and running. You don't know what damage it was. I don't know if any of you has ever seen the Taj. It was a terrible experience. Exactly on the 365th day, maar bhadke. You know how project engineers are. Once they're given a goal, they bloody go for it. We had the inauguration. There were prayers from 6 or 7 communities. There was a Parsi, there was a Christian, there was a Muslim, there was a Buddhist, there was a Jain, there was a Sikh. So that makes it 6 or 7. Each one was told, don't go on and on with your prayer for 2 hours each, 5 minutes or 7 minutes. All the prayers were over. And he said, Taj is open for business now. Get back to work. So these are, to me, I initially misjudged some of the qualities of Ratan Tata. He has flaws, I also have flaws, you also have flaws. But some of the characteristics he showed me what a future leader would look like. And I valued that. Ratan Tata was very convinced that the long life of Tata is very important. That he was the inheritor from JRD of a company that had already lived for 120 years. He said, I must leave this company so that somebody else can run it for another 100 years. And while the Cyrus Misri episode is talked about a lot by people, I don't know all the facts, I had retired by then. That was his driving consideration. Whether he was right or wrong, you could decide. It's like our liquor scam or 2G scam. But his interest was, I should leave Tata's in the hands of people who can run it for the next 50 years, 100 years. Long life. So that's the second characteristic, I think, of the future leader. Think of the long life of your company. And don't give yourself excuses that I have got private equity people or government people sitting on my head, which may be true. And I would like to close because my time is, I think, over. I don't want to go on and on. It's a subject I feel very deeply about, so I'm in danger of taking longer than I should. But I feel it from here, not from here. So I'm sharing with you that your company must be something which is doing something for somebody else, not for yourself. Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago, and in 1893 he was talking, all of us know the story. And the American businessmen who were attending his session said, you know, Swamiji, we are all business people, small traders, small industrialists, SMEs. Whatever you're saying goes over our head. So tell us in simple words, what can we do as businessmen to contribute to society? And he said, you have to do only 4 things. And he said it in 1893. And of course, I have taken more complex expressions of it and oversimplified it because that's the way I understand it. He said, number 1, be self-aware. Your enemy is not your competitor, it is not your boss, it is not the government. You are the enemy because all the ulzans are coming in your own heart. So become self-aware. Second, he said, protect the resources that help you to do your work, to earn a living. And they said, what do you mean by resources? He said, air, water, soil, and people. If they were not there, you can't run your company. Now, this is long before ESG and long before Trump. Protect them. Third thing, he said, always ask yourself, have I served other people before myself? There is no virtue in being the world's richest man if you're not the world's most generous man. When I was studying physics in my younger days, we had a Belgian professor who was teaching us. He would say, you see, this is red in color. You really think it's red? And we were 17, 18-year-olds. Yeah, it's red. It's not. It's taking all the light and it's throwing back the red at you. And it's absorbed all the other colors. Now, all of us have learned this in our physics lessons. We all know it. If you want to be the world's richest man, you must look the most generous. Otherwise, you won't be. Why does Tata spend 40, 50% of its profits after tax back on society? Not because it's inherently generous, not because it is Parsi, not because of religion. He said, that's the reason I exist. So, I would like to close by saying I wish MRPL a very long life. I hope doesn't matter whether I am there or Mr. Kamath is there in 50 years, maybe both of us won't be there, I don't know. But whoever is there, some of you may be sitting here, say with pride that I have served this company for the last 10 years and I heard this I thought about it. Today I'm sitting up in the front. I'm a leader of this company. It will last 100 years, 120 years. It can't last forever. But I'm very, very interested to see companies like yours, which are wonderful companies, not think of themselves as PSUs, but think of themselves as long-lasting companies in the service of consumers, community, all that stuff. Thank you for inviting me.
It was insightful, thought-provoking, enlightening, and motivating. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your profound insights and inspirational thoughts. Sir has covered how to embrace change, how to implement immunology in our HR, and how to make the company long-lived. And also he guided our young leaders. Now it's a question-answer session. I request people to be seated for some more time. It's a question-answer session. Mics are available. You can just stand up in your seat and mics will reach you. You can ask the questions.
Good evening, sir. Since we talked about leadership and uncertain times, I have a couple of questions, sir. In these times of uncertainty and the world of ambiguity, and with lack of relevant information, how can we get the clarity to make strategic decisions, sir? Clarity, yeah. Clarity is very important to make any decisions. But in these kind of uncertain times, we may not have all the informations.
Can I answer your... Okay. You have a second question?
Yeah, I have a second question. Whether being vocal or rather too vocal a trait to climb the corporate ladder, or being soft-spoken is also acceptable?
So let me take the second one first. Don't be vocal or soft-spoken, be yourself. Because some of us are made like that. You know, if you tell Subramanian Swami, be soft-spoken, वो नहीं चलता है. What's the use of telling him? You know, there's no point. So be yourself. But above all, be constructive. One of my bosses used to tell me, I don't mind your criticizing the company, but come with a solution. Don't just criticize. You know, you can sit down here and say, this minister or this prime minister or this secretary has not done his job properly, bloody useless for a nutcase. Can you do it better? That is the way to think about it. Some people are soft-spoken. If you can be soft-spoken, that's nice. To me, Dr. Manmohan Singh and Ratan Tata show that being soft-spoken is not a disadvantage. I can't think of any loudmouth who I can show as a virtue. But if you're clear-headed and constructive, being spoken constructively is the advice as a second question. Your first question is how can you have clarity? I'm glad you asked this question. I am saying in the future you will not have clarity. This starting assumption of yours that unless you're clear you can't take a decision. If you're clear, then any dud can take the decision here. You don't need a guy who's already MTech in chemical engineering, who's worked in the refinery for the last 25 years. Yeah. So, imagine two different journeys. One, today, you are driving your car from Bombay to Delhi. You go to the petrol pump, you got your GPS system, it tells you look for a petrol pump after 1 kilometer turn left, it tells you got clarity. And you reach Delhi. I don't think anybody will clap for you. You got a map and you went. Now I suppose I put you into a boat outside Mangalore and no instruments. You can choose one instrument. Go across the ocean and reach Brazil. Which instrument would you take? Can you think? You would ask for a compass. The mota moti, am I going east or west? You won't have a map, because the map will not tell you there's a petrol pump in the middle of the ocean. The compass will say, mota moti, I'm going right. You're not clear. And yet you will reach that place with a bit of luck. And if you do, people will say you're a hero. Far better than driving your car to Delhi. Why? Leaders have to learn to use the compass. They have been trained to use maps. That time is fast declining. Learn to use the compass. Most of us haven't even seen a compass and certainly don't know how to use it. You're not clear, but the compass is saying that's north, so you start moving whichever way you're supposed to go. Then you stop and put your compass again and find your way. Don't look for clarity. Always, I'm not saying you take your decisions. There are lots of decisions in the earlier stage of your career which you can take with clarity. I'm talking to the leader, the future leader. What else?
Good evening, sir. My name is Ajay Bhatia. Sir, when you told about Reliance getting into other businesses, even Mahindra & Mahindra has gone into real estate.
Sorry?
Even Mahindra & Mahindra has gone into real estate. And Aditya Birla has also gone in financial sectors. Plenty of businesses are moving around here and there. So that's one I wanted to add up, apart from Reliance, because everyone, we talk only of Reliance. We don't talk about other groups who have also been very well into coming out of their main business. Sir, second thing, two of my colleagues are here. I don't want to name them, but they have told me to ask you a question. They said, what happened to that 1 million which you could not find out?
What happened to?
That 1 million which you could not find out.
Yeah, okay. I'll answer this. Firstly, your first question, Mr. Bhatia, na?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Ajay Bhatia. It was not a question, sir. It was just adding up to what you said about Reliance. So,
I wasn't trying to praise Reliance or...
no, I worked in both the organizations, sir.
No, 1 minute.
Just
There's a big difference. Aditya Birla or Tata have also changed their portfolio, but over a much longer period of time. Within a period of 30 years, what Dhirubhai started as a textile company, then became a petroleum refining company, then he became a petrochemical company, then he became a telephone company, then he became a digital company, and now he's talking about AI, all within 40, 50 years. Is quite remarkable. I'm not saying Aditya Birla or Mahindra have not done a remarkable job, but they are also, if you want to take those examples, by all means take it. And Dhirubhai Ambani done it in the same organization. He has not set up subsidiaries. Can you think of MRPL in 30 years' time, I don't know, being in software and computers, or artificial intelligence, same MRPL? If you do, fantastic, but we can't clap our hands today. But that's what, whether you like Ambani's methods or not, that's a separate matter. I won't go into that. Your second question was?
no, sir. They asked that what happened to that 1 million which you found out.
It is not with me.
No. It's just out of curiosity that they want to know. We didn't hear what happened to that 1 million.
It turned out that somebody had swindled us. And really I should have been fired. But God is kind. I didn't get fired. And I'm able to tell you the story today. That's it.
After this question answer session, there is a small felicitation for the guest.
Hello sir, my name is Rahul Gautam. Sir, I have one question. Sir, what is more important? What is more important, to be more effective or to be more efficient?
More?
To be more efficient in management.
Efficient.
Yeah.
In the first part of your career, you will be rewarded for being more efficient. In the second part of your career, you will be rewarded for being more effective. That doesn't mean you give up efficiency, yeah? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's the balance. It's like, in a marriage, In the first half of the marriage, you must be loving. In the second half, you must be more responsible. Not the other way around. It's a balancing. It's not one or the other. Okay? The better presentations, how to speak well. But you don't have a course on how to listen better. Or who's the HR chief? Has he got a course? I can't see. Luckily, you're hidden behind the lectern. But, and I've written about that.
Yes,
How
sir.
can you be a better listener? So those are all in my book.
Now it's time for felicitation of the guest. I request our Managing Director, Direct Refinery, ED Projects, ED Refinery, CVO, and GGMHR to join the felicitation. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the conclusion of this memorable event, it's my privilege to extend a vote of thanks. First and foremost, on behalf of Team MRPL, a big thanks to Shri R. Gopalkrishnan for graciously accepting our invitation and sharing his profound wisdom with us. Sir, your enlightening session has truly left a lasting impact on all of us. Thank you very much, sir. We, the employees and families of MRPL, express our deep gratitude to MRPL management for creating this unique opportunity to experience a guest's inspirational address here, allowing so many of us benefit from these insights, from his insights, sorry. A special note of appreciation goes to the organizing committee of Refine Fest 2025 under the able guidance of our ED Refinery for executing this wonderful program and ensuring its success and making it an event to remember. Thank you for your efforts and dedication, sir. Word of special thanks to the different departments, those who helped to organize this program, electrical, IS, logistics, admin, and corpcom departments. Finally, I thank all the employees, family members, and the audience for your enthusiastic participation and support. Your presence in large number has added warmth and energy to this occasion. Thank you one and all. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka. Now I request everyone to please rise for national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे